Dear everyone, dear friends, after a deep dive in the ecosystem of digital trust in the heart of Trust Valley, in the state and Republic of Geneva, I am so pleased to welcome you to speak about innovation, startup, and what is going on this Trust Valley with the Tech for Trust, our program. So before we talk about what does digital trust mean in the world of startup and innovation, how to protect your supply chain, what about chain of custody, we will approach this kind of topic now with you about supply chain, cybersecurity for large group to have be resilient regards the last story of the cyber crime gang with Colonial Pipeline. Industrial needs to guarantee their customers cybersecurity and trust related to their production. They have to raise the traceability in involving their supplier in the processes. For companies, this is an opportunity to count on a local, innovative, and resilient ecosystem. The Swiss Lake Geneva region, in the heart of the Trust Valley, offers this deep ecosystem dedicated to digital trust and cybersecurity, closeness to such large companies as Nestle and a lot of others. I propose to you a deep dive in this Swiss innovation ecosystem, an open dialogue with three renowned startups from the region. First, Leo Bolchanin from AppNovum is head of cybersecurity Western Switzerland, a senior manager with more than 15 years of track record in information technology and cybersecurity, solid experience in technology, leadership, security, risk, team, project management, successful entrepreneurial experience in building a high-tech business. Next, I'm very pleased to welcome Laurent Balmely, the co-founder, the head of product and market at Strong Network. Laurent, you are a Swiss-based entrepreneur with a passion for the design of technology product in the domain of cybersecurity. Your last startup, Strong Network, was acquired by Snapchat. Yeah, Snapchat. After 3 years at Snapchat, you left to create Strong Network in last year, and you were with us in the Tech for Trust for all the last winter. It was a great journey with you. I'm so happy to have you with us today. And I'm so pleased to welcome to Ricardo Garcia. Ricardo, you are the head of partnership on blockchain advisory at ScanTrust. You were in the first season of the Tech for Trust. It was a first great adventure too. So, Ricardo, you are currently head of partnership and the GoChain Foundation, where you mainly manage blockchain for supply chain project for enterprise customer. And ScanTrust invented the world first secure QR codes, which serve as a unique identified in traceability project. So yes, let's talk about now the topic of supply chain, but not only. So Leo, please, in your opinion, what are ingredients of successful innovation ecosystem, more particularly for technology around digital trust?
Yeah, thank you, Lenny. Yeah, so an ecosystem in digital trust. Digital trust, it's a rather broad topic. And we know that almost every successful business starts with a strong focus, because generic innovation complicates the path to success. It's like swimming against the current. And if we look at the innovation ecosystem on a high level, we have investors, innovators, and customers. And actually, for me, customers is the critical pillar. We have in Switzerland and as well in Romandy, the chance to host some of the world-class business sectors, including banking, chemicals, pharma and logistics, or food transformation. So for me, the innovation need to be created with a purpose to fulfill local customer needs and spark a close collaboration between industry and innovators. And for me, we have to tailor this innovation and tailor the digital trust to industries we have in the region, and actually initiate contact with them and create synergies. And this is how we will succeed. If we try to do something which is not presented here, it will be much harder, because the reach of the foreign markets is preferably the next step once the business is well established. So we have to count on local assets we have.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, Leo. Laurent, we talk about chains of custody. Can you briefly explain the value of a digital chain of custody in today's business environment? And can you give some case study or example?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, the digital chain of custody is something we inherited for legal investigations, right? It's deal with the accumulation of evidences to trace a chain of events and to confirm that they really took place, right? And which order conditions, right? So first of all, when you hit that definition, it's really a notion that is central to trust and that provides us with the practical definition and a way to implement digital trust. You want to know how to implement digital trust, chain of custody actually is one of the ways to do it. So in today's business environment, there's a lot of practical uses, especially in industries where the need of compliance, right? So the notion of digital trust can be applied for many processes that businesses run throughout the daily operation. For example, whenever there's a need for traceability, right? And it's also the notion of custody. This is also attached to the notion of integrity of information, right? So in other words, like you should be able to prove that the information that you accumulate, all these evidences that you go to the process, that actually they really, they collected, they still, the integrity of this information is verifiable, and it can be done. This can be done, for instance, with tooling cryptography, such as hash functions and the like. So recently, there's a lot of needs, but like usually the world of software development, it's keen of checking this concept to verify a chain of events around the development of software asset, for instance, where we need to verify that who accessed the code, who made modification to the code, and this becomes even more relevant because we're a totally distributed world. The code development process is totally distributed across many locations, and it's very important, especially for compliance purpose, to be able to verify that. So that's I think the simplest definition that I can give for digital chain of custody.
Okay, Laurent. Thank you very much for your clear purpose. Ricardo, to make the link between what Laurent and Leo said to us, chain of custody is a topic that has also been spoken about a lot about supply chain context. Can you explain to us what some of the value on the business benefits are for brands, for instance, in food, beverage, or cosmetic, to monitor their chain of custody in their supply chain?
So Laurent did a great introduction into what chain of custody, into the concept and what it is. And essentially what he explained is that it is a way to verify that a specific event took place at a specific time and by a specific actor. And interestingly enough, this principle doesn't only apply in the world of software development and compliance, but it also applies in many other sectors. And one of those sectors is the food and beverage or the cosmetic world, where we don't talk about monitoring when someone developed a piece of code and when it was implemented, but we talk about monitoring where a particular raw material ingredient was sourced from, when it was produced, and when it was processed. And that's what we mean when we talk about chain of custody in the supply chain context, tracing back the history of the ingredients of a product. And in the last year, there has been a big explosion of interest and attention on the topic of tracing back raw material ingredients in the food and beverage world and in the cosmetics world. And that's mainly driven by two bigger parts or aspects. One of them is regulatory compliance, similar to the examples that Laurent made, which mainly covers two things. So on the one hand, product recalls, So today, a recall of a product, if there is contaminated salmon, for example, or contaminated meat, costs billions because companies are not able to trace back precisely the origin of where the products came from. And there has been a lot of investment going into being able to trace back your products using blockchain-based solutions and other digital traceability solutions in order to reduce the costs for product recalls, which is something that companies need to mandatorily invest by law. The other compliance-related area that is coming up more and more is social responsibility. So in Germany, for example, there is a law that is probably going to be passed, which is called the supply chain law. And essentially what it does is it makes companies liable for their indirect suppliers. So if you take a German cosmetics company that produces a product in Germany, but the palm oil in that product is coming from Indonesia, and the palm oil in that product is produced via slavery, then the company in Germany becomes liable for having purchased palm oil that was sourced not legally. And this is completely new because it puts a huge pressure on the cosmetics or food brands to really monitor their supply chain in a much stricter way. And these two, like compliance and regulatory factors, have caused a big push into investment into chain of custody for supply chains. The other bucket is the consumers. So there's a lot of research that shows that consumers just want to have better visibility on where their products come from. And there's a real business case for brands to invest into making chain of custody and traceability information available to end consumers to protect their market share, position themselves better against their competitors, and on the other hand, also for sustainability purposes.
Yes, clearly, Ricardo. Leo, how, in your opinion, chains of custody fit to our digital trust ecosystem in Romandy, in Switzerland, and in the Trust Valley? Because Ricardo spoke about Germany, and what do you think about our environment here?
Yeah, I think that examples that Laurent gave first with the software development and protection of integrity of the source code, as we have multiple very sensitive industries that are creating software that helps them in the business, or Ricardo spoke about chain of custody for supply chains and with very strong local players here. So for me, therefore, this seems to be the right technology candidate for a successful Swiss digital trust project, because we see it's applicable to the reality. It's applicable to the ecosystem. We can project this into our reality, even here in Romandy. Moreover, if we take other industries, such as, for example, banking, and in banking, we need trust at many points of the journey, right? Because customers and partners may communicate with the bank using various channels. Could be the telephone, could be electronic means, could be through some back office systems. So, for example, in this case, the chain of custody could also theoretically help to build the single source of truth that can be auditable, transparent, and provide trust in back office processes and in relations with customers. I mean, then we can think about another example, for example, in pharma, where the drug is first invented, then tested, and all along the way up to clinical trials, of course, we need auditability and the proof of information integrity as well. And finally, once the drug, when the drug is produced and shipped to the final consumer, this final consumer need to be able to verify that the drug is not fake. This again, where this technology can bring added business value. And as Ricardo mentioned previously, of course, in the food distribution industry, the capacity of being able to track products between the producer of the raw material, all the chain up to the consumer, is extremely valuable. And actually, the chain of custody can guarantee that the trust is not broken at any level, and that the end product shipped is not fake and safe for health. So this is why, for me, this is a very good example that you've chosen for discussion, because it's applicable to our local business. And again, using it, we can create synergies between inventors, industry players, and investors as well.
Yeah, yes, it's exactly that. Laurent, how do you work with your local ecosystem to go to international markets? And the question is for your three.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. So I think we just need to mention like how we make this practical, right? First of all, how we realize this, because I think we've been talking about chain of custody so far, but it was like people say, yeah, you have to put some kind of manual process on top of new things and new verification. So I just want to make the link to digitization of the process, because this is where it boils down. I mean, you can actually put this notion in place, and this is why we have now this digital chain of custody notions, because the increased digitization of processes, and this is what allows us basically to collect information, because obviously, you know, it goes without saying, if there's no way to collect information actually in a scalable way, right, which is mostly automatically, this is difficult basically to make this happen. So the definition that I gave before is really realized, and today can exist because of digitization, the amount of digitization that we have for processes. So, and this can be done on multiple level of granularity, right? This is what it becomes interesting, because it's a function of which level the process is digitized, right? And in turns, it depends of the support, of the amount of support that the process execution gets from tooling. What kind of tool do you use to support the execution of your process? So in brief, what we need to do is to reconcile the need of the collection of evidence for business purposes and the amount of automation and digitization that is put in place to support the business process. That applies pretty much in all the examples that Leo and Ricardo gave. So in other words, it's always about like, what is the optimal amount of effort to put to maximize the return on investment? And here the return on investment is the cost saving or cost control that you would benefit from the automation to comply with the need for compliance verification, for example, right? So I just given a quick example, like for instance, that we actually do with Strong Networks, that the implementation of chain of custody for the verification of access and usage of critical corporate assets, such as data set, for instance. You want to check who accessing data, who's using data across a process, like for instance, software development or data science. So this actually can be put with design principles like the use of zero trust design principles. So this chain of custody makes use of some type of access control granularity that you have, because you have some type of access control mechanism in place, and you create what you do. You get this information and you create a narrative across all this process operation that basically that becomes your chain of custody. So you know who did what at which moment and so on. But to do this, I mean, obviously, we need to have the right level of digitization of the process. This is where basically ScanTrust and other companies, they bring new tools because they allow this digitization that was not possible before.
Yes, exactly. I really want to know a little bit more about new business model. As startupper, you are in startups since a long time, the three of you. So. Could you say a little bit more about new business model? What is it to have a business model in startup? Just let's. Maybe Leo, you want to begin?
Ricardo, perhaps.
Ricardo.
Yeah.
What it means to have a new business model. I think the most important thing as a startup is that you have to remain flexible with regards to what your business model is. And you have to adapt to your customers. For example, to give like a few private insights from our side, like we essentially generate unique QR codes for products, and those are applied to products. And in the past, in the very beginning, our business model originally was that you pay each time someone scans that code. But what we very quickly learned is that the corporate and enterprise, like finance and procurement departments, they need planability. So they need to be able to forecast how much something is going to cost. And if it's based on the number of times someone scans it, it's extremely hard to forecast. So we had to change it towards like charging a fee per unique code. So each time you generate a code, now you pay a small fee, and then companies can forecast their volumes, and they know we make 5 million units per year. So these are more or less the costs that we can expect. And interestingly enough, I mean, for some of them, potentially this is more expensive than paying per scan, but they prefer the planability over the uncertainty. And that was one learning we had, that you have to just adapt your business model to the way your customers buy and think.
Yes. Do you work in ecosystem since the beginning, or it was only work with ScanTrust? How do you manage your partnerships?
That's a question for us.
Yes, for you again, Ricardo.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm personally not one of the co-founders of the company, but I've been there for around 3 years. So I've seen a lot of how the company works and how we manage our ecosystem and partners. I think for us, partnerships are extremely important. So as mentioned before, like we provide a software that integrates unique and secure code on product packaging. But first of all, that code is on a label or on a packaging, which means a packaging or label printer is usually involved, or it gets printed on a production line, which means a printing line on the production line is involved. And usually there is some data linked to that code, like the provenance of a product or similar. So there are systems like SAP or other things involved as well. So our solution as a standalone thing never like works in that way. You always need an ecosystem of partners around it who implement it and who build integrations. So from the start, we saw ourselves as one piece in the whole traceability and packaging world, and we invested quite heavily into partnerships with printing packaging companies, with system integrators, with blockchain partners, and so on.
Okay, thank you. And Laurent, as a serial entrepreneur from the region, could you say a little bit more about your past, about your partnership, how you make the things happen in startup?
That's opening the question, right? But I think it all depends basically what I find myself the Swiss market to be quite tough, right? I mean, it's obviously people are very willing, but it's as the economy that is moving at a different pace from, for instance, the US, right? And especially so you mentioned my previous startup, it was named Strong Code and not Strong Network, but like the one was acquired by Snap. So this one actually was we really got like a lot of traction in the market while we started working internationally directly, right? And I think this is something also that I think should be clear for startups in Switzerland, is that it's obviously good. I mean, we have a relation with the local economic tissue. I think this is good. But like you always keep yourself open for international as soon as possible, and the sooner the better. Because in that case of the previous startup, we really closed a larger deal with international partners before closing with Switzerland. This time is a bit different. I think we already have like quite some good traction in Switzerland, and but also things are moving much faster in the US, for instance. So I think, yeah, if you try to establish partnership, I think it's obviously it's good to be part of the ecosystem. And you have to be obviously very open to also go be broader quickly, because otherwise time is the essence of all startups. So I think this is why it's a thing. But it doesn't say that the Swiss ecosystem is bad. All the opposite, actually. I think I really like to work with Swiss partners, but like there's a different pace in the US. So you can feel it. Actually, we're working right now with people in the West Coast of the US, and it's just different. It's just the risk, notion is different. That's it.
This is a very good example why we need to make our ecosystem more dynamic, and this perhaps established industry players need to come closer to innovation organizations like Tech for Trust and say, yeah, what can we do? What kind of innovation activity we can have? And we do have some investment budgets to help you. Maybe let's do an acceleration program with some seed funding. We need to do something like that, because unless we do it proactively, the innovation will happen abroad. This is not something that we want to do. And having world-class institution presented here, we really need to spread the word that we need their help and we need their collaboration. And perhaps Tech for Trust is the right interlocutor for them in case if they want to do more.
Basically, I have to say that we are scouting for the season 3 right now. So international startups are really welcome here. And yes, Leo, you are part of the advisory board of Tech for Trust, this new kind of program to boost startups. I think also, yes, it's really important to talk about this topic today. But I see the time now. And last but not least, the topic in the context of today in Geneva. What do you think that Biden and Putin summit could afford in the way of digital trust? It's for you three.
Leo, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I mean, this is a very special level, right? Very high. So, I mean, I was in cybersecurity. I am in cybersecurity industry for quite a while, and I really know that every digital system may have flaws. I mean, 100% security do not exist. It's all about risk and digital or information risk management. So I think that really at this level, leaders and countries can afford any advanced digital trust technology, like new encryption algorithm systems, implementing it, quantum communication channels, almost anything, precision tools. However, I think that sometimes the safest in this context is to avoid any type of digital communication. So I really think that for some utmost critical meetings, this is really happening face to face without unuseful observers, and actually making sure that all digital systems are just shut down.
Ricardo, a reaction?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that Leo made. And I think after the pandemic, even the world leaders are happy to be able to meet again in person, because especially looking at the geopolitical landscape, it's great to see some more relaxed rhetoric. And I'm sure that Biden and Putin meeting in person will have a great outcome and lead to good conversations.
Yeah, and so to me, I think at least it's communication, right? Because and it's communication that seems to me like more orderly and less chaotic than with the previous administration. So I think this is perhaps where we can feel. I mean, at least with the with the change in administration, I felt like perhaps there will be a more orderly and perhaps less lopsided type of communication between between this. Obviously these two nations, and it's really something that everybody would benefit, right? You have some kind of balanced communication, and so sometimes you think that this. So I'm not going to go to, and I really think what they was saying is really interesting. I think we might be yearning to go back to some kind of simple way to communicate, and perhaps not influence. But I think it's at least there's something happening, and I think that's actually brings a lot of comfort to lots of people. That's at least is a summit, and there's some type of things happening. Yeah.
Yes, clearly. I guess that this escalation can be in the heart of their dialogue today for economy, for society. I think we are all here in digital world since long time, and we really need to continue to be on it with trust for us, for our business, and for the next generation. So yes, I think. Just a last question about you. What do you want to add? Something to say to startupper, to innovator of the world who are listening us right now?
Do what your customers.
An advice to startupper who want to go to the next level as you.
Do what your customers want from you. It's the best way to grow. Listen to your customers.
Yeah, and have faith in your ideas, in your capacity. Be perseverant, but at the same time, just be smart. Do your homework first. Look at your competition. Read books about entrepreneurship. So don't just concentrate on your idea, but try to gather the big picture.
Yeah, and I think I would have to say exactly what Ricardo and Leo said. So the only thing I can add is that do not delay the possibility of failure, right? If you need to get feedback, if you need to fail quickly so you can do something, learn from it, and do something different. Because I think a lot of things I see is that, an idea is a good idea, but you need to go through validation process. So you need to get feedback as soon as possible. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Laurent from Strong Network, Leo from Adnovum, and Ricardo from ScanTrust. The day will continue. It's only the lunch right now. Just stay with us for the afternoon, and just say to you that join us in our ecosystem in the Trust Valley and in the Tech for Trust next season. And see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.